There we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Lovely to be with you this evening, and thank you for the very kind invitation to join you for the opening of Encounters 2024. I want to just start up front by letting you know that I made the fatal error yesterday on the day of my wife's birthday, the 19th of June, trekking her up to the presidential inauguration with me, which was quite a painful way for her to spend her birthday because it involved being on a bus at 6:30 in the morning, being seated at the union buildings by 7:30 for an 11 a.m. program start, and then having to do the long trek back to Cape Town last night. So I am saying up front that I'm going to slip out as the movie starts so that I can take her for a birthday dinner, and I hope that you will forgive me for doing that. But I do want to say to all of you who have come to Cape Town for the festival, a very warm welcome to Cape Town, to the Mother City, and to one of South Africa's most important film festivals, which has launched the careers of so many documentary filmmakers in our country and in our city. I warmly congratulate the festival organizers for the 26th edition of this festival, which has been attended by more than 200,000 people since it began in 1999. And this is a very welcome event for the city, and one that we are very proud to be relatively long-term supporters of, and proud to continue to support now and into the future, because of the work that it does to stimulate and nurture the filmmaking industry, the nascent filmmaking industry, or I would say even now more than nascent industry in our city, and adding value to the entertainment and leisure offering in the Mother City, and of course for the important role that it plays in stimulating debate on important social issues, something that I'll get to in a couple of minutes. So I hope that everyone enjoys the 51 films on offer this festival, the many insightful panel discussions which will hopefully help to tease out many burning social issues that are documented in these films this year. And I also want to take a moment, although it's already been done, to congratulate all of the creatives behind the scenes who toiled in recent years to bring these ideas and concepts and debates and issues to life through documentary film in this festival. I congratulate in particular the makers of this film that we are celebrating at the opening this evening, Pearly, Miki and Nkosikhona. The premiere of Mother City this evening is one of the many interesting docies on offer this year. And while I obviously have not seen the film, very few of us except the makers themselves have. I have seen the advert, obviously, the rather provocative advert, and I was interested that you described Nkosikhona as the protagonist. It begs the question as to who the antagonist is, but it is of course a critical and important issue, and one that I'm very passionate about, and it explores a topic of close concern for myself and for the city of Cape Town. And I'm joined this evening here by a couple of people that I think I should introduce you to. Firstly, my colleague Carl Popham is the Mayoral Committee Member for Human Settlements in Cape Town. My colleague Nolwandle Kliba is the Executive Director, Human Settlements in the City of Cape Town. And Lawrence Valita is also a Director for Public Housing in the city. And I'm thrilled that my colleagues from Human Settlements have joined me this evening to both to watch and to talk about this very interesting film. I want to just say a couple of things about what's happened in this space in the last 2 years in particular. You will have heard in the introduction that the film covers roughly the last 6 or 7 years, straddling really three mayoralties of De Lille, Plato, and these first 2 years of my own administration. And I do want to say that there really has been a sea change in approach from the City of Cape Town over the last 2 years on social housing and affordable accommodation in the city in general. And when I was discussing this with Carl yesterday and earlier today, when we knew that we were coming here, he made the point quite adroitly, which I think is quite correct, that really we have found much to agree with in the Cape Town housing activist community over the last 2 years. And that, I think, is why it's important to fund films and filmmaking opportunities like this in the way that the city is proud to do, because in a society it is incredibly healthy and important to foster and nurture and allow space for debate on important social issues like this, because that is how you get closer to the truth and to a better position over time. And I always say to our team, we must approach criticism, even the most harsh and trenchant of critiques, presented often in a quite fundamental and unnuanced way, as it sometimes is in Cape Town. But we must still approach that with the idea that there might be a kernel of truth from which we can learn something and improve our own position. And that has certainly been our approach to the very active Cape Town housing activist community in the last 2 years. And I hope that they will agree. I see some of them in the audience, that they will agree that they have experienced also that sea change in approach from the city. And really that has been built on a kind of management structure that we've built together, Carl and I and Lwande and her team, which is actually really simple in its construction, but has delivered quite tremendous results. And that is that we focus on the problem in a really relentless, laser-like fashion. We have a meeting together every 30 days, and every 30 days we look at how many pieces of land we have released in the last 30 days, what have been the major blockers that have stopped or slowed down our progress, what we can do to remove those blockers in the next 30 days before our next report back, and so we go. And we have done that every 30 days, relentlessly, month in and month out for the last 2 years. And the simple act of focusing on a problem until you get results has really worked. And we just call that our land release priority program, because in government you must have a fancy sounding title for everything, but essentially it boils down to that. And if you look at what we've achieved, it is quite extraordinary. I asked Carl to just pull the exact details ahead of this evening. And in fact, it is true that over the last 2 years in the city of Cape Town, we have released more land for social housing than the city has done in the last 10 years before that, on both a square meter terms and a number of land parcels terms and a number of available or potential units on those land parcels. More social housing has been released by the city of Cape Town in the last 2 years than in the last 10 years before that. And that is really encouraging and important progress. We've also introduced some institutional arrangements that for future mayors and Cape Town administrations will make it easier and better and simpler to release land for more social housing and affordable housing in the city. We've introduced mandatory discount factors that we apply to all of the land that we release. And we have said explicitly and proudly that we are prepared to discount land all the way down to zero, so long as we can maximize the number of social housing units on that land. And so instead of social housing projects bidding on the price that they are prepared to pay for land, they can now bid on the number of units that they are prepared to offer on that land. And that is not just some kind of subjective decision we've taken. We've actually taken it through the council policy process and had it ratified for future governments as well. We've also offered what the National Department, the National Minister of Human Settlements has confirmed is the most extensive set of discounts for social housing projects, besides just the land purchase price, discounted rates, discounted water and electricity prices, discounted infrastructure connection costs, and other discounts all in an effort to try and boost the number of available units. In fact, Carl recently spoke at an international conference on social housing where he presented our social housing program and all of these support structures these institutional arrangements that we offer. And one of the international participants reported that it was one of the best social housing support institutional frameworks available anywhere in cities around the world. Now, in this movie this evening, I think, if I base it on the advert that I've seen, we will see the story of two properties, two pieces of land in particular, that being the Helen Bowder Nurses Home, which is a property of the Western Cape Provincial Government, and the Woodstock Hospital site, which was a property of the Western Cape Provincial Government but is now a property of the City of Cape Town. And both of those sites, we hope, in the years ahead will yield thousands of social housing units in prime locations, because they are both relatively large sites. Just last week, the city released our 7th inner city property for social housing under this land release program that I spoke to you about. These properties that we've released, these 7, will yield just over 5,000 affordable housing units, including 2,500 social housing units. One of those properties stands the Maitland Mews development, which is already tenanted with over 200 families occupying social housing units minutes from the CBD. We're also working with the provincial government to enable more than 1,000 social housing units down on the foreshore at the current circus site called Founders Garden. So I'm glad to say that the story over the last 2 years has progressed rapidly and radically from a portion of what you'll see in this evening's film, a context in which social housing had not been built in central Cape Town, as many units have now been delivered close, very, very close, within minutes of the CBD, or are in very final late stage development inside the CBD itself. We are also battling an extremely inadequate national subsidy regime and red tape complexity that both government and social housing companies must overcome to get these projects off the ground. And I'll say a little bit more about that in relation to the activist community. Woodstock Hospital is firmly in our sights for social housing and would have been in construction phase already if it were not for the major obstacle of the unlawful occupation of that building. Yep. While the film explores the lives of those unlawfully occupying the properties, it's important to take note of these points. I want to make a point about the paradox of seen and unseen poor in South Africa. This is an important phenomenon, often in our public debate, and I'd be grateful for your ear. Much of the attention in South Africa is focused on those poor that we can see and describe and who have names, and it is easy to tell and hear their stories. Far too little attention in South Africa is focused on those poor that we cannot see. They're still there, they are just as real, they have just the same stories, they also have names, but they do not receive the same attention because they are hard to identify. The city has a responsibility to both sets of people, to the poor, both seen and unseen. And it's important for us to accept that when a piece of land is occupied illegally, that is not an act that is victimless. Because behind the scenes, there are a group of people who have equally compelling and tragic life circumstances, who are equally as poor, but do not get the same focus because they are harder to identify. There are people who have been waiting on waiting lists, many of them for 2 or 3 decades. They have gone annually, they've gone every year. No, excuse me. They have gone every year to renew their name on the waiting list, to check their details. They have not ever broken the law. They have diligently waited as law-abiding citizens, most of them elderly women, in fact, like Mrs. Eleanor Veery, who the city is now representing. This is exactly the time and place. This is exactly the time and place. No, it's not a problem. I absolutely don't mind. I've been heckled by activists many times, don't worry.
But we did understand that the mayor is going to be confronted with certain issues and will be open enough to
Yep.
come here and present.
You see, my concern.
Please listen, because this is the space we provide as a
My concern.
engagements that are happening.
Please don't worry. Please don't worry. Please relax. I really have been heckled by housing activists many times. I want to make a point about the unseen poor, because I think this is the community that the activists forget most often. And I will say only this about our case in Belhar, which I think is a salutary tale, which I would like all of you to know about. In Belhar, the city is currently representing 9 families who, on the eve of them moving into the new homes that the city had built them, their homes were broken into and illegally occupied by 9 other families who had equally compelling personal circumstances. And for 2 years, those homes have been illegally occupied, while no one has sought to represent those 9 families who were due to benefit from those homes, like Mrs. Eleanor Veery and 8 other families who had been waiting on the list for many years. They are the unseen that I am talking about. No housing activists group in Cape Town has stood up to represent them. Only the City of Cape Town has done so. No housing activist community or housing activist group has championed their cause or pointed out that they are the victims in this story. Only the city has done so. I want you to remember their stories as well when you consider the stories of those who you hear about in the activist community. Thank you. Now, I hope that while the film explores the lives of those unlawfully occupying the properties, there are also thousands of people in Cape Town who are ready and waiting to benefit once those properties have been lawfully developed. That is the central paradox and the point that I wanted to make, that the act of illegal occupation is not a victimless act. There are also new opportunities, I think, for housing activists to apply themselves productively to new problems in the city. They have made compelling points about the speed at which we are releasing properties, and we have addressed those, as I've spoken about earlier, in our housing priority program, releasing more land in the last 2 years than in the 10 prior. But there are new challenges. For example, every single social housing project in the city requires a social housing grant from an organization called SHRA, the Social Housing Regulatory Authority in South Africa. The last few properties that we have released, even though that they are approved and full recipients of all the subsidies that the city is offering, have not yet received their subsidy from the SHRA. There is a serious funding challenge at that organization where the subsidies are not being released through the system because of governance and leadership concerns. This calls into question all of the projects that we are trying to get through our pipeline here in the city. And then, of course, the availability of land. The pipeline that we are working on as a city contains many dozens of properties, but they are all relatively small in nature. And we are doing what we can to get them through our pipeline as quickly as possible. But we would love it if the housing activists here present would apply themselves as energetically to the question of other state departments and levels of government releasing the much larger parcels of land that they have, where they are in control of those parcels, and making sure that the social housing subsidies get applied to the parcels of land that we get through our pipeline as well. So there are opportunities for the housing activists in Cape Town to apply themselves in partnership with the city more productively in the future. So I hope that you have some additional context from a government perspective for tonight's film, and you know that in the last 2 years there has been this positive sea change in the city to deliver much more affordable housing more rapidly. I do hope that you enjoyed this evening's film, and I look forward to watching it myself in the days ahead, and that the film creates positive discussion towards the quickest possible solution to deliver social housing at these 2 sites and many dozens of others around the city. Please do enjoy the film, enjoy the festival, and most of all, enjoy our beautiful, diverse, and complex and interesting mother city has to offer during your stay. I offer once again my congratulations to all of the filmmakers and creatives behind this year's Encounters Film Festival, and my thanks to the organizers. Thank you very much indeed. Any questions?